If you've ever had a bold idea but hesitated because the outcome was uncertain, this conversation is for you.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion, my words got power, my thoughts have action, motivation, stay gracious, that's greatness, be audacious, motivation, be audacious, innovation, be audacious, inspiration, be bold, motivation, be audacious.
You know, when you talk about audacity, I really love saying that you either win or you learn. You know, everything that you said there was spot on in terms of people being able to take risks and get out of that 9 to 5 or whatever the life is that they're living right now that leads them to think, maybe I should start my own business, whatever it happens to be. That being said, I think we can all agree that success is similar in each person's instance, in that it is a defined goal, or at least it should be a defined goal that we seek we pursue, and achieving that pursued goal is what I think we can all agree success, kind of looks like.
Because every sports fan knows what it means to start a new season with belief. You show up, you stay loyal, and you keep cheering, not because you know your team will raise a championship trophy at the end of the season, but because you believe they just might. This podcast is all about helping you unlock your inner greatness and live your best audacious life. And today's guest is Leigh Angman. He's an entrepreneur, business builder, and author of the book SPRUCTIS. And he's founded several companies across real estate and technology and hospitality and so much more. You know, what stood out to me in this conversation was Leigh's honesty about what it really takes to stay in the game, trust the process, and make bold decisions, even when there's no guarantees. So now that we've got the table set, let's turn to our conversation with Leigh. Enjoy. Hey, Leigh, thanks for joining me here on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you making the time like this.
Hi, Audley. Thanks for having me. As I always like to say when I start something like this, is it's something I don't take for granted, and I appreciate it immensely. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to your audience, who I know is very loyal.
Yeah, no, thank you. I do appreciate the opportunity to engage and share. And I think for me, the way I kind of frame it, so Leigh, you and I now are going to engage in a dialogue, and others now have the opportunity to eavesdrop on what we're dialoguing about or talking about, and they potentially can take something that they overheard us chatting about to use in their own lives to get them in a better place. That to me is just a phenomenal thing to be a part of, and what kind of drives me. So thank you for being a part of this. I mean, I could talk by myself, but it's much better to have you here with me. So really, really much appreciated. Much time on this podcast, it's really about encouraging that spirit of audacity. Like that, that spirit exists within each and every one of us, and oftentimes just to be, it's about having the courage to tap into that, to take that first step, to be bold, to be courageous, to take risks. These are all part of it, because on the other side of those risky decisions, those bold choices, that's potential where all the greatness lies. But we'll never know until we make that step forward, and I can equate that very much to entrepreneurship, right? Like, hey, I want to start a business, but I don't know if I can. I might be scared. I'm not sure this is for me. Maybe I won't do it. Well, not doing it, you'll never know. But what if you do it? And what if you are successful? And what if you can achieve all your wildest dreams as a result of that? That's special. And that's kind of where the spirit of audacity comes from. And so for yourself, I know, entrepreneurship is your world, and you are helping other entrepreneurs in their own journeys. And so maybe as a starting point, Leigh, I can get you to introduce yourself to our audience, discuss the work that you do, and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Sure. Thank you again. My name is Leigh Angman. I guess a serial workaholic. Over the last 25 years, I've founded or co-founded 6 companies that are still currently active in the areas of real estate technology, IT security, gaming, hospitality, and data science. And my predominant focus typically is that of corporate finance and business development. So, when you talk about audacity, I really love saying that you either win or you learn. Everything that you said there was spot on in terms of people being able to take risks and get out of that 9 to 5 or whatever the life is that they're living right now that leads them to think, maybe I should start my own business, whatever it happens to be. We all that have made that leap, excuse me, to entrepreneurialism, realize that it's just fraught with pitfalls and terrifying choices. At the end of the day, you don't have to be right all the time.
Right.
You have to be right more than you're wrong. And you should learn from the mistakes that you've made along the way. And as long as you have a long-term vision about where you want to go, take those lessons learned and apply them to the next choices and decisions that you make.
I love it. No, I do. You learn or you win. That's kind of what it comes down to, those two options. And that even just a beautiful way of reframing in our own minds, because you didn't have fail on your list of options there. Here's two things, right? But the fail is what oftentimes people don't do things because I'm going to fail. I'm not going to succeed. So not try altogether. Absolutely. Well, if you don't consider as failing and you go in with a mindset, okay, I'll be successful or I'll take something from this. That's a game changer. It really is.
Yep. I absolutely agree that it is. Mindset is such a massive part of achieving success. And as a sidebar, success is the most subjective thing in the world. To one person, it could mean something that is polar opposite to the other person in terms of how it manifests itself and how it comes together. That being said, I think we can all agree that success is similar in each person's instance in that it is a defined goal, or at least it should be a defined goal that we seek we pursue, and achieving that pursued goal is what I think we can all agree success kind of looks like.
Curious, what first drew you into entrepreneurship? What got you there?
That's a good question. It's really difficult for me not to frame so many of my answers in light of my book, SPRUCTIS, which was actually I've been working on it for 2 years, and it just came out last week. So I'm very, very excited about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. In the book, in fact, the very, very first chapter is called How a Canadian Rodeo Made Me an Entrepreneur for Life. And it was a story about when I was 6 years old. I was at a rodeo or a stampede in the Bridge Lake region of British Columbia here where I grew up. And, at my father's suggestion, I realized that if I collected beer bottles around the feet of the friendly spectators that were around us watching the day's events, I could gather a bunch of them up together and return them back to the point of purchase, and I could get a quarter for my efforts. And I was immediately hooked. I was like, you've got to be joking me right now. And so I also talk about this in the book as well, this idea that, I realized very quickly the harder and faster and more intelligently that I worked, the more I was rewarded for those efforts. And I thought about that day many times later on in my teens when I was working at a gas station that I can see in my mind right now, or a fast food restaurant that I worked at. I was not confused, but it was odd to me that I realized it didn't matter how hard or not that I worked. I got paid exactly the same. So I definitely preferred that method, that concept of working more cleverly or smarter or harder. It hooked me. So that was definitely my first taste of entrepreneurialism, and aspired to cut the cord from a job. And it's been 26 something years since I had a job. So I'm pretty happy about those early seeds that were planted. They gave me a vision for the future, and I'm very, very happy to have gotten there, if you will.
I love it. And even going back to, you've got these multiple businesses and these multiple sectors. My guess is, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but my guess is that wasn't the plan, that opportunities presented themselves, things availed and revealed to you, and you saw the opportunity that you went after it. So I want to really get you to sort of talk about it's the importance of recognizing and seizing opportunities, because that to me sounds like it's been, and well, yeah, you haven't said it yet, but I'm going to guess and speculate. That to me sounds like that's been big for you.
It absolutely has been big for me to come onto your podcast and say, oh, well, I had this great grand vision and I realized I should just make this one choice and it would launch me into the world of entrepreneurialism. No.
That's not how it's done. No,
there is a tremendous amount of serendipity. There is luck. Clearly, there's a lot of hard work that has gone into getting there. But I go back to this. It's making mistakes and being humble enough to learn from them. I say this as well, and forgive me, my life is filled with cliches, but I think that they're cliches in a negative way only if people apply that negative connotation to them. I think they exist for a reason because they're very, very factual. But I use this expression all the time. The only way that I have been able to find sustainable success over the last 25 years of kind of owning and operating businesses is to surround myself with people that are smarter than I am, people that can do things that I can't. And obviously I have to bring a particular skill set to the table such that I can excel in ways that conceivably they can't. But it's been, for me, about working really hard, not being afraid to take risks, and finding other people that can do things that I can't do and aligning my interests with them.
Mm-hmm. And going back to those, I'll probably refer to those two options that you mentioned initially, right? You learn, and you succeed, right? Each time you made the decision, one of those two things came out of it, I would imagine.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. I think about our first pub, or I guess it was a restaurant at the time and converted into a pub eventually. But in 2004, I had done some other, small businesses, early .com days, businesses, that kind of thing. But my first real bricks and mortar business was a restaurant in Vancouver called Relish. And we opened it in 2004. And we had, a series of youthful naivete and over-exaggerated confidence that led us to think we could actually do this in a successful way. Mm-hmm. I don't want to, we could certainly talk about how that evolved, but that's a separate question altogether. Suffice to say, it was shockingly difficult. And after the first 5 years of being in business, we were over $500,000 in debt. So let me tell you, there were a lot of lessons to be learned from that experience.
Would you say that's your boldest business decision that you made?
I think that it was one of the first big ones.
Okay.
It's one of the most bold business decisions I had made back in those days, and to think about how it has impacted me since was at the end of that first 5 years. We were deeply in debt, as I spoke about. I had four partners. One was my brother. Three other guys were guys that I'd worked at restaurants with earlier in my career, and we had a couple of options. We could cut our losses, write a check for it was about $550,000, about $110,000 each, and walk away, or, and this is where the big bold decision came for my part. I realized that we started really doing some deep analysis into the business in terms of where the revenue was coming from and what our chances were of evolving the business, and made the bold move of convincing the landlord and my partners that, yes, we're in debt this much, but I'm going to remortgage my house, bring another $300,000 to the table, take over the majority shareholdings in the company, and downsize dramatically. It was a 7,000 square foot restaurant, which we downsized into about a 1,900 square foot pub. It was the lounge side of the business.
Okay.
Gutted it, renovated it completely. And this was just before the Olympics came to Vancouver in 2010, by the way. So here we were, striving so hard, closed for 4 months, trying to open before the Olympics came to Vancouver.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another $300,000 in debt, had this plan for an 8-year payout. The numbers were telling me it was going to work out in this smaller size. And we opened the Monday before the Olympics. And I'll never forget it. From the day we opened, it was a smashing success. During that Olympics period, we had a lineup from 2 and 3 p.m. Well before dinner rush, and we had a liquor primary license, which is a pub license here in Vancouver that we'd acquired, so we could be open till 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and had DJs and dancing, and we had numerous sports celebrities and media celebrities into the place.
Beautiful.
Long story short, like I said, we had this 8-year plan to pay off this new kind of debt that we'd accrued. 16 months later, just over 16 months later, we'd paid off the entire debt.
Beautiful. And
started us on this path. And it was at that time that I'd really started to refine this framework that I have written about in my book called SPRUCTIS.
So let's kind of go back. In the moment when you made that decision, you put your house up to get more money into it. That had to have been scary. Like, what was like
terrifying? It was terrifying. I talk about this too as well. Economies of scale, whether it's 50,000, 500,000, 5 million, 50 million, whatever it happens to be. If you're in a business that you're responsible for that, and your, income at the time was a fraction of that, I don't care what, level of that debt or whatever that you're facing as a business person. It's terrifying. It strains business relationships. It strains personal relationships. And the alternative was to just cut our losses and go home, and cry. I wouldn't have been okay with that. So yeah, it was terrifying. And I think about this all the time. I thought about it when you asked that question about, tell me these bold strategic moves that you made. No, they're all a series of risks and wagers. And we did it, and it's one of the ones that I absolutely have learned so much from, to the degree that I've laid it out in a very obvious framework that have definitely been able to use to apply to future businesses.
So on this vein, because it's so intriguing to me, is how do you decide when to take a risk versus play it safe?
This is the best question ever. You have to use calculated data. You have to not use emotion. People talk about gut feeling all the time. Okay, I'm comfortable with that, but I have the privilege of being part of a number of young men's groups because I am now the old crusty senior in the networks here in Vancouver. And a lot of guys ask me, like, what is the biggest word of advice you could give for someone starting out in entrepreneurialism? And I say, if you're going to fail fast. But if data, not emotion, tells you that there's a chance for success, do not quit. The power of perseverance is incredibly strong and valuable. And, you just really have to stay the course.
And that's the tough one, right? Staying the course. It's because every time there's a big decision made, you kind of get that angst in your stomach, like that. I'm not, and you're undoubtedly second guessing yourself and question, is this what I should have done? And sometimes the worst thing we could do is tell someone else, because they'll tell us that was a wrong decision, right?
Of course. As an entrepreneur, you have no shocking, Audley, I know you know this, the number of armchair quarterbacks that are out there that are like capable of telling you that was a stupid decision 6 months later.
Yeah. Why didn't you?
Still working at the same job they've had since high school and going to the same pub with their buddies on a Friday night. Not that I'm judging them in any way, but you get good at picking the whom you take the advice from.
Yeah. It's and it's really funny sometimes. These people who are giving you advice, Leigh, sometimes there are those that couldn't care less about your well-being and your success or anything like that. But then there's others who love you dearly and want to see you succeed, but don't want to see you fail.
Sure.
And so they're giving you this advice out of a place of love, but it actually isn't helpful either, right? And so it's not always just the haters. The ones that love you will give you bad advice too, right? If you're not careful.
And some of when I think about some of those guys that I've described in that last sentence, some of them are close colleagues, personal friends, just not risk takers. And you just have to get good. I touched on it earlier. If you want to find success, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And really, trying to have a network of close friends that are around you that understand what entrepreneurialism is like and understand that risk taking is a terrifying thing, but are there to support you and focus on pragmatic choices as opposed to emotion filled ones. Those are the types of person that you would really benefit by surrounding yourself with.
Right. Okay. So kind of on this vein, then I'm curious, what one, and we'll call them failure or one setback or obstacle or whatever, what we kind of get where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Which one taught you the most?
Oof, I don't know if I could say there's one that taught most.
There's been a bunch of them, I guess.
Oh.
Is it your
and they happen every day. We have a restaurant now on Granville Island in Vancouver. It's called the Vancouver Fish Company. And in the summer this year, we had almost 130 employees. So to give you an example of a small thing, it's just the way that you interact with all of these humans, because drama inevitably comes up. I believe it's called human resources. There's an entire department that's filled with that. The way you interact with that, the way you interact with your landlord on a lease negotiation, the way that you interact with vendors when you're negotiating new pricing for various things, right? So obviously I do point back to that pub example. That was a big, bold choice or gamble or risk that thankfully led to quote unquote success. But I don't want to attribute that to answering your question with, I don't want to say that one was more important. I think it's that realization that the holistic series of choices and decisions that you make throughout your entire path all contribute to that. It's the life's a journey, not a destination kind of an answer,
Mm-hmm. Well, I would agree with you. It is. And I think that's, and so going back to this podcast, I think that's why the spirit of audacity is so critical, because it is going to be an adventure each and every day. It's going to be a process. It's not going to be that one decision, boom, we're here. It's never this one thing. It's a series of things, but those series of decisions can't be made until you demonstrate that audacity that we talked about. And so I'm not trying to shamelessly promote the podcast, although I think I am indirectly, but it is
do a
very,
fine
very
job
true.
of that, sir.
But it is very, very true. Like, I don't think there's any other way around it. And for me, the way, and sort of to build off what you're saying, I mean, for me, the way I kind of look at it is, okay, if there's something that you've never, ever done before, the first time, and you're trying it. Well, first of all, congratulations for trying it. So first, you're going to get a gold star from me for trying, right? But really, the chance of success for something that you've never, ever, ever done is probably low, because you've never done it before. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
So why are we beating up ourselves? That's because we don't succeed at the first try. That's, I'm not, I think of the first time, let's sort of break that down. First time you got on a bike, were you successful? Maybe, but most likely not. Right? Or rollerblading or surfing or whatever. Like we all are beginners at some point in time. And it's until we get the reps in, until we get better at what we're doing, until we give ourselves a chance to achieve this thing called mastery and get good at it. But if we're not there, then it's okay. Learn from it. And then instead learn. Couldn't
agree more. Two things came to mind, and mindset has a lot to do with it. I have a 15-year-old son. And I best thing I've ever created in my life. Love him to death. We get along amazingly well. He is, though, a typical teenager who, does not understand certain things about achieving. It's like, if you want to do something, I say to him, do you believe you can do that? And sometimes he'd be like, yeah, and I go, if you think you can or cannot, you are absolutely correct. It's that mindset shift that
Yes.
everyone has to do. Forget about being an entrepreneur, being someone who picks up a pair of drumsticks for the first time or steps onto the basketball court for the first time. You know, if you believe that you are not going to be able to do this in any, again, quote unquote, successful way, then why even bother trying? You know, so parenting, there's so many parallels between parenting and entrepreneurialism, but
Absolutely.
all of it comes down to mindset and imparting that, you know, knowledge into someone else. So
I actually want to go back to your business across all these different sectors.
yeah.
And I think it's in line with kind of what we just spoke about, like some of these things you were going into for the first time, for some of the things you're trying out. I would have guessed that all of them you had no idea what the end result would be, but you tried anyways. What I'm probably most curious about is how do you maintain, because you need a certain level of sort of creativity and innovation, but you're dealing in different sectors. Like how do you maintain that across all of the different sectors that you're part of?
I engage in something called delusional optimism. Statistically speaking, I know that I am not going to close every sale that I go into. Statistically speaking, coming out of high school, I knew I was not going to, you know, achieve the girlfriend or the car that I wanted to, but I didn't care. I kept telling myself that I could. And I'm a huge, some people call it, you know, manifestation, law of attraction, these kinds of things. But I know, excuse me, Audley, very clearly that my brain recognizes my voice. It is something that it's the most familiar voice to me. And if I tell myself, oh, I'm going to fail, or this is not going to work out, or the brain starts to realize these things and pay attention to these things. Conversely, if I say, I'm absolutely going to do this, I absolutely am going to achieve this, I started to recognize the patterns of this delusional optimism, literally fresh out of high school. I said to myself, and I had this picture of an Acura Integra. I don't know if you remember that old car.
Yeah,
on my
absolutely.
wall above my desk. And I said, I'm going to have that car. And there was a book out years ago, I believe it was called The Secret or something like that, people would go, I just if they don't read the whole thing, close my eyes and wish really hard and then things will come to me. Not quite that simple. It's about using language to yourself, verbally speaking about achievements that you want to make.
Yes.
And then, and here's the key part, is engaging in behavior that supports the pursuit of those goals, right? And every single decision that you make, of which we make tens, if not hundreds every day, it will help you move towards that path. So despite the fact that I didn't have experience in anything that I had done when I did it for the first time as a human, that's a very good point. If you literally tell yourself, of course I can do this, it doesn't mean that I don't live in Realityville, you know?
Right.
I already know, I've accepted that I'm never scoring a goal in the NHL. Like I'm comfortable with that. Yep. I'm not going to be a brain surgeon. You know, my hands are too shaky for that. But could I be the CEO of a mining company one day? Sure. Why the heck not? You know, could I learn to play a new instrument in the remaining years I have in my life? Absolutely, I could. So there has to be, I live in Realityville. In a part of my book, there's a big section dedicated to talking about idealism versus realism. And idealism is beautiful, that's for sure. But you got to live in Realityville.
Yes.
That being said, the marriage of living in reality and engaging in a delusional optimism, excuse me, and engaging in delusional optimism, it's a very healthy place to be for your mind.
So it sounds like there's a fine line between these two towns, right? Like, you know, Realityville and delusional optimism town. Like there's a fine line between the two, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can live in Realityville and still engage in delusional optimism. Okay. I don't think you can live in Idealismville and hope to achieve. There's beauty there. It's far more beautiful in this idealistic town than that of Realityville. But you have to make the choice. I talk about this as well, this idea that when my son was going back to the parenting thing, when my son was very young, he used to say to me, "Daddy, that's not fair." And I would love it when he would say that, because I would say yes. And then I would stare at him and he'd say it to me again to try to get a reaction out of me. And I said, "You're correct. What else you got, sport?" You know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing for kids to learn early that personal accountability is the only accountability that matters. We talk about this all the time in business as well as parenting. Who's responsible for you? I am. Solely me. And that is one of the flyers that comes in your mailbox in Realityville. I can tell you that much.
I love it because it's true. Like, I mean, you get to a point where you look in the mirror and it is only you, right? And you have to take responsibility and be accountable for everything that's happened. So sort of on that vein, because I can certainly see, when we go through difficult or challenging periods, that the R word I like is resiliency, right? And that's when we've got to sort of turn up the dial on our levels of resiliency to deal with the realities of life. Have there been sort of some effective sort of strategies or approaches that you've taken to help you? Because undoubtedly you've had to be resilient and get through stuff, right?
Yes. The thing that comes to mind here immediately is this idea that live in Realityville, and it's okay to, maybe beat yourself up a little bit about the failures that you make, but celebrate your successes. Remain humble. Keep your ego in your back pocket, but celebrate your successes with at least as much, if not 10 times more, the energy that you put into beating yourself up over the mistakes that you've made. Strategy has paid dividends just immensely, numerous times over my career. I can't even, count the number of times. Do not be afraid to be proud of what you've done. If you are a person who can take personal responsibility and accountability for your failures, by all means, take personal accountability for your successes as well. Because I can't remember, and I quote this quote all the time. I can't remember who said it though. I can't find it. Guy once said to me, being an entrepreneur is like waking up each morning and getting hit in the face with a baseball bat, and with the occasional element of positive reinforcement to remind us to keep going, stay the course. It's a treacherous path.
Yeah.
But the alternative, for me, it's the worst definition of hell I can imagine, is being in a desk on Monday morning at 9:00 because Mr. Johnson tells me that I have to be there.
Well, and here's the thing. No matter how dangerous or treacherous or arduous or difficult, whatever word I missed, you throw it in there, how bad it might be, if that is your calling and you're not following your calling, that to me is way worse.
I agree.
That's way worse. You potentially set yourself up to live a life of regret. What if? And on top of that, not only you have that regret, you still got that itching thing that's there, still kind of tapping you, going, "Hey, remember me," and it's not going anywhere. And it's not going anywhere because you haven't scratched that itch. So I would say, kudos to anyone that goes after, and they weren't successful and they went after anyways. There's still much to be proud of.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree. I think about this often as well. When I see for lease signs on a busy public street, a lot of people will go, "Oh, well, there's an opportunity for my new violin store or my new bakery or whatever it is." And that's okay. But I do pause to think about that entrepreneur who gave it a shot and did not succeed. That's someone's hopes and dreams that have been crushed. They've got to the point, because I know there was a business there 2 weeks ago or whatever it is,
Yep.
It really, you'd hope that it doesn't ruin them financially, or it hasn't ruined them, and that they have taken some lessons from that, and God willing, they get back on the horse and they try again. But kudos to those that have tried, because you must take some lessons from that entire process. There's probably a lot of little wins along the way when you're gone, and but inevitably it didn't work out, this one. But you get the point, right?
It's funny. I think back as we're having this conversation. I think back. I remember my grade 5 teacher, Ms. Watson. She was one day we were in class and she was telling me, "What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up?" And Leigh, I have no idea where this came from. I have no idea why. It's because it's in my mind, at least in my conscious mind. It's never been a calling. But I said to her, "I want to be a comedian."
Amazing.
And yeah, that was it. And I remember years later going, "Where'd that come from?" But you know what? Wouldn't it be cool to kind of get up on an open mic and tell a couple jokes and see what happens? And I remember thinking, "Nah, I'm not," and putting it off. And it thinks on my shoulder for the longest time until I finally did it once. And now I'm completely satisfied because I tried it. I did it. I didn't bomb. I did okay as far as I'm concerned. And I walked away. It wasn't the passion, but certainly it was worth kind of, looking behind that curtain and seeing what's there. Right. And that's what we're talking about here with respect to trying stuff, because you never, ever know. And I mean, I'm not the greatest joke teller, but I didn't bomb, so that's okay. What's wrong? What's the worst that could happen?
You seem like a pretty gregarious guy. I'd come and watch you for sure. But what a great story, Audley. I mean, I think that it perfectly epitomizes this idea of the regret that we would have if we didn't try. Yeah. And I think most people can relate to that. Everybody has dreams.
Yep.
Everybody has wishes and aspirations and goals in that. I really, really care, though, about your plan to achieve them as opposed to just the dream.
Yeah.
The idea that the road to success is paved with hundreds and thousands of great ideas that were never executed upon.
Right.
And the regret that is tagged on to them on the other side. And some people are just oblivious and delirious about the entire concept, so they don't have the wherewithal to realize it. But I love that story because it's a perfect metaphor for what did it hurt? You put your pride aside for a little bit. You got up on that stage. Who knows? I love it. That's what a perfect metaphor.
Thank you. No, thank you. It's something that's like, it's funny. I've haven't thought about the story for the longest time until we started talking. So thank you for reminding me. It's funny. I'm going through a book writing process now. I'm thinking that would have been a good story to tell.
That's a great story to tell. Absolutely.
Yeah,
fill that book with lots of those personal stories. I mean, that resonated with me instantly.
Yeah. Nah. Thank you. So on the topic of book, let's get into yours because you've got one out there. It's like that segue. It's a natural right. Get into
Look
that.
At that. Hey, how smooth
I've done this before. Tell us about the book and what made you write it, because I don't think author was on your list of things when you went out.
It wasn't.
But you tried anyways, right?
I absolutely did, and I'm very, very proud of it. I worked on it for 2 years. The book is called SPRUCTIS, which it's an acronym. It's SPRUCTIS from Insight to Action. And SPRUCTIS stands for Systems, Processes, Redundancy, Urgency, Communication, Technology, Integrity, and Sales. Okay. And think of a Venn diagram. You know what a Venn diagram is? A series of interconnected circles. Mm-hmm. It is at the center of that Venn diagram, represented by 8 circles, each of one given a letter that I described. It's at the center of that where the true gold in business has happened for me. I've realized that if I have been deficient in my focus on any one of those 8 things, there has been many, many examples quantifiably that tell me that business is not functioning as well as it could, or as well as other businesses that I have worked on in the past and that I have observed. And I spoke about Relish, our pub, and the things that we kind of did as that process evolved in the early 2000s to the mid 2000s. It was that framework of SPRUCTIS that really started being adhered to. It was kind of lingering around in my mind early on in other things that I was doing. But I was like, all right, let's give this a shot here and really start to operate the business in a far more structured way. I note that businesses that I have observed haven't failed because of a lack of passion. They've failed because of a lack of structure, a lack of a framework. And yeah, I believe very strongly, because I have observed it, and as have a number of clients that I've worked with, if you adhere to the various elements of that framework and really truly focus on them, you will find success statistically more often than you won't.
So I got to ask, the SPRUCTIS, where did that come from as a word? I love how you just naturally use it as a verb, right? Yeah, I get that SPRUCTIS out there. And how'd that come to be?
I thought about these things, and it had some other weird iterations, but I know it's a bizarre word. People are like, what? SPRUCTIS, bructose, whatever it is, SPRUCTIS. It just
I actually thought when I saw your one sheet, I actually thought I was misreading it. Like, what, they made a typo or mistake.
Like many things that have happened in my business life, I didn't plan it. I didn't find it. It's found me. I have entered into the back half of the last, the back half of my existing life thus far, the last kind of 25 years, with an open mind and realizing that the universe is sending you signals all the time. I don't want to get too deep into, spirituality. I'm a spiritual person, not particularly religious person, but I believe that the universe is sending you messages. And if you can leave your mind open and just be willing to accept things that you don't know. I love saying all the time, I don't know what I don't know. And keep an open mind and allow yourself to accept some of these things, they're going to come to you. So yeah, SPRUCTIS right here. It absolutely came to me, and patterns have told me time and time again that was the name I should call that book.
So you went with it.
I ran with it.
What I've often found really, really helpful is a realization in my life. So I'm gonna go back, because I remember it was once upon a time where, and I don't know where it came from or how it came to be, but I adopted this mindset that I was a self-made man.
Brilliant.
Did it all by myself. It was all me.
Okay.
And I was like, yep. And as time went on and I started to kind of, move through life, I realized that I was actually dishonoring the people that had poured into me, that encouraged me. Even if they gave me a compliment, that helped, because it validated me, and that gave me the encouragement and confidence to kind of keep pushing forward. And one of the things that, and so when I start to make the shift from this old way of thinking to, no, people are actually good to have a community around you, I really start to see the value. And the one thing that stood out to you, and you said something that sort of triggered the thought for me, the one thing that's been very, very clear to me is that when people say to you, or, hey, you're really good at that, or I like that, or this, or I see you doing this, you need to pay attention to that, because they have an outside viewpoint that you can't see yourself the same way. And that perspective that they have allows them to be able to go, hey, this is really good if you try this. And I'll tell you a quick story. I remember I went into a Home Depot one day. I was renting one of them, those vacuum water picker upper things, right?
For your carpet cleaning.
That's right. And got engaged in dialogue with this person at the counter, and she said to me, no lie, no exaggeration, you should have a podcast. Right?
You have a great voice. I mean, that's
but that's just right. But that really goes to what people on the outside see, and that's how accurate she was. I'm like, I've had a podcast. I was like, yeah, I've been doing a podcast for 5 years. I got 500 episodes. Yeah, no, right. But it's what they see, and so I'm just wanting to sort of get your thoughts on the value of having that community around you.
I love, you said I'm a self-made man. My initial reaction immediately was brilliant, because it is brilliant. There's that mindset shift. Okay, that you took, realizing in your perception that self-made man had some negative connotations. Perhaps where you had framed it in your mind was not, it was more of an ego-driven statement, as opposed to I am proud about where I've come from. A lot of people talk about this all the time. I didn't, my parents didn't give me anything. I was not paid My parents didn't help me with university, or I had to take the bus to work every day from when I was 14. That person should absolutely be proud. And I'm okay with defining that as a self-made man or woman. Okay. It's how you frame that in your mind and how you are sharing that and putting that out there in the world. Right. So super comfortable with you calling yourself a self-made man while acknowledging that I don't mean it in an ego-driven way. And, oh yeah, by the way, I want to thank my grade 5 teacher for this question. And I want to thank this person at the Home Depot, or your parents, or a university professor, or someone who had, or a boss, or a friend, a colleague, someone who's brought you up in your moments of feeling down. Doesn't matter. Everything's a spectrum, whether they're, 1/10 of 1% of what made you the person that you are, or 99%. Nobody does it alone. I actually did a post recently about that exact concept. Can you do it alone? And those that say exactly, yes, absolutely, I can, I don't believe they live in that realityville that we spoke about before, right? It's they have not shifted their mindset in a way yet that has allowed them to realize that it is so much that has occurred prior to today that has brought them to this day. But, I'll end on reinforcing this note. Be very proud of the things that you've achieved. And as long as you can hold your ego in a way that has an element of humility, I believe anyways that these are characteristics that will lead to more success in the long run than in the short run, than not.
I agree. Leigh, you have made this a delightful time. I got to tell you, this has been an absolute blast. I've enjoyed the insights. I love just the mission overall that you're, and the part for me, when you turn around and put the stuff that you went through in a book and say, all right, folks, check this out. This is like you're shortening the learning curve in such a major way for so many people. And that's the sharing part is what really exhilarates me the most and gets me the most excited. It's not that I did this and I've kept it to myself. It's I've done this. Okay, let me share with the world. So congratulations on doing that, becoming the author that you never planned to be. So congratulations on doing that. Continued success in your business. And for listeners that wanted to connect with you directly or learn more about your work, where could we send them?
Yeah, I'm easy to find, SPRUCTIS.com, which is SPRUCTIS.
Of course it's SPRUCTIS.com. It has to be SPRUCTIS.com, right?
I'm available on LinkedIn, Leigh Angman, LEIGHANGMAN, as well as Instagram and TikTok, et cetera. Very easy to get a hold of. And, I always say this as well, this idea that I'm not here reinventing the wheel. The book is not a representation of these groundbreaking ideas that I think that I'm the first entrepreneur ever to have come up with. What they are, what the book is a series of lessons learned. And if I can, you touched on it brilliantly there. If I can shortcut anyone else's path to their definition of success by kind of stepping on and learning from the mistakes that I've made, then I would absolutely suggest that book will be a success.
I love it. We are going to make sure all those contact details are in the show notes below for our listeners. I encourage them to connect with you, check you out, pick up your book as a great starting point. And yeah, shorten your own learning curve. You're talking to a guy that's done a whole bunch of stuff that he didn't see coming and he did it anyways. And that's the whole audacious risk taking that we encourage here. Leigh, thanks for this. This has been awesome. All the best, my friend.
Thank you so much, Audley. I very much appreciate your time and your energy, man. You're all over it. It's amazing. Thank you.
Back we are here on the podcast, and I gotta say, before we even started recording, Leigh and I were talking about my beloved Toronto Blue Jays and last year's World Series run and all sorts of thoughts along that before the conversation went before we pressed record, and it really got me thinking. Being a sports fan is kind of its own audacity. You start every season with hope, with belief, and with the willingness to stay loyal, even when you have no guarantee your team will be the one raising the trophy at the end. And honestly, entrepreneurship leadership is not that different if you think about it. What really stood out to me from this conversation with Leigh was his reminder that bold decisions are not about pretending fear doesn't exist. They're about learning how to move with clarity in spite of that. I love the way he framed it. You either win or you learn. And that right there is such a powerful mindset shift because it reminds us that audacity is not recklessness. It's vision, it's resilience, it's trusting the process long enough to give your bold decision a chance to work. Sometimes one bold decision changes everything. It's time for an audacious insight, a quick look at something happening in the real world that reflects the power of bold thinking and intentional action. You know, one of the best examples of audacity in action was when Masai Ujiri made the bold decision to trade for Kawhi Leonard in 2018, knowing full well that the move would be questioned, criticized, and heavily scrutinized. And then came the unforgettable Game 7 buzzer beater against the Philadelphia Sixers, a shot that bounced 4 times before finally falling and sending the Raptors to the Eastern Conference Finals. That moment became one of the greatest in basketball history, but it never happens without the bold decision that came first. Audacity is not just about taking the shot. It's about having the courage to make the move that gives that shot a chance to happen. Be sure to connect with Leigh, check out his book, SPRUCTIS, and learn more through his website and social platforms. And if this episode spoke to you, make sure you follow the podcast, share it with someone who needs it, and leave a review so more people can discover these conversations. Thank you for being here, and as always, until next time, live life audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious.